We met in high school. Actually, most of my family met him before that. He moved to Michigan from Missouri in about 4th grade, and my aunt ended up being his Cub Scout leader. So I didn't meet him until some of our mutual friends introduced us in 9th grade, but other than that, most of my family met him before I even did.
How did we meet? Well, as cliche as it is, the internet was kind of our meeting place, and friend requested her on Facebook, and we chatted up on Facebook, and she was seeing somebody else at the time.
We reconnected through Facebook. He sent me a friend invite, and so we just started chatting, and I was dating somebody, he was kind of dating somebody off and on, and we ended up talking to each other more than we were talking to the people we were dating.
One day, she had called me, and I was working, and was yelling at me because I had predicted the end of her relationship, and not that that was my aim or my goal or anything. I just said, well, this is what sounds like to me is going on.
So we were kind of joking about, we should go to see the Red Wings playoff game. And so we started figuring it all out on Facebook. I said, wait a minute, before we buy tickets, we need to go and reconnect and have a sit-down meeting.
I said, well, let's go have dinner or lunch or something like that. I haven't been to Fenton in a long time. Let's go do that. So we decided to meet at French Laundry and have lunch there. It was supposed to be just, lunch, maybe an hour or whatnot. Turned out to be like an 8-hour day. We had lunch, and then we walked around Fenton, and, we were just sitting around the mill pond and, talking and catching up, because we hadn't seen each other since high school, so, 10 years.
After lunch, we ended up walking around Fenton. We went through the mill pond, we walked through, and we watched a couple people play tennis, and it was like 8 o'clock that night when we finally went our separate ways, and I think the only reason why we went our separate ways at that point was because the Red Wings were playing that night. So otherwise we probably would have kept walking around.
My first impression of her, she didn't change a bit since high school. She looked the same, which was fantastic as far as I was concerned.
My first impression of him was that he seemed just like the easygoing guy that I knew back in high school. Nothing really had changed.
She seemed really bouncy, energetic, just in a good mood. The weather was good, so that might have had something to do with it too, but she just had a really good vibe around her,
He had a little bit more tattoos than he did in high school because he didn't have any then, but other than that, he seemed like the same old Shaun that I knew back in high school.
I call it our first date. She doesn't call it our first date, but I'm going to call it our first date. When we went to French Laundry, and we literally walked around all of Fenton.
Technically, our first date was back in freshman year of high school, so that's what I use as our first date. Shaun uses our reconnection date as our first official date.
I think we went out to the movies, a week or two later, and I think that's what you'll probably classify as our quote-unquote first date. But like I said, I consider French Laundry and the day we spent in Fenton, our first date, because I'm sorry, you don't just randomly meet up with somebody after not seeing them for 10 years and then spend 8 solid hours with them. I don't know what else you would call that besides a date.
Shaun and I do a lot of stuff together. For the last 2 summers, we've planted a garden at his parents' house.
The things we enjoy, we both really like going and walking. We really enjoy just kind of walking around and enjoying outside.
We like to go for walks together, enjoy the outdoors.
Taking long drives through the country, stuff like that.
Going and exploring new places together. We've done a lot of that where, let's go and explore this town today, or let's go do this, and just little excursions and explore new things together.
I've kind of turned her into a bit of a foodie, and so she enjoys going to restaurants and trying new things, or I'll make her dinner, or we'll attempt to make dinner, ourselves, me and her, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well, but most of the time it does. It's edible. Cooking
together is fun. I don't know a lot about cooking, and Shaun does, so it's been nice having him teach me along the way.
We like to watch Red Wings games together.
Go to the Red Wing game if we can, or watch it on TV.
We entertain each other enough just by being next to each other that we're content.
My favorite quality about Shaun is he's really hardworking. He, not only is he working full time, but he's also going back to school, and he's always out to better himself, better us, better our relationship. So it's never we're caught in a rut kind of thing. We're always growing and changing.
Favorite qualities about Danielle: she cares a lot about everybody. I think that's what makes her a good teacher. She's always really into her classes, no matter what she's teaching. Even if it's not something she necessarily wants to teach, she puts her whole self into it. I admire that quality.
The proposal. Shaun had gone up to Flint to go and celebrate his sister's birthday and had taken her out for dinner or gone out for lunch because she had class that afternoon. So I was working, I wasn't really thinking anything of it.
I lied to her and said I had to do something. And I went and met my friend to buy the ring. I spent like 3 hours, going over the rings and just really looking them over and checking them out and trying to imagine it on her finger. And I finally get that picked out, and I'm driving back, to our apartment in Royal Oak. I was in Flint, and I walk into the apartment and I have the ring in the box in my waistband. All right. And so I'm wearing like a sweatshirt over top of it, so she can't see it. So I figure I can duck into the bedroom, hide it, and she'll never know.
So he came in the house, and I didn't think anything of it. It was just become a friendly joke between the two of us. Oh, is there a ring in there? And the look on his face, I went, okay, I was just kidding.
I don't know why, but randomly she just goes, I had a bag, I bought some other things. And she goes, so is there a ring in there for me? And my heart dropped. I'm like, what? What did you just? She's like, oh, I'm just messing with you. I'm like, oh, sweet God. I'm like, I gotta get this thing out of my waistband. So I'm like, hey, can you go make me some food or something like that, just to get her out of that room, and not that it was a big apartment, but just away from me so I could ditch the evidence.
That night, he started pushing, we should go to the French Laundry. And I said, my parents aren't in town this weekend. I don't really want to go back up to Grand Blanc. I just want to stay home this weekend. Let's not go anywhere. No, we really should go to French Laundry. It would be perfect. We really should go to French Laundry. And kept pushing.
I'm like, let's go to French Laundry. And I'm just pushing for it. And I think I pushed a little too hard because she's like, I think she started telling me, she told me afterwards, she started texting people, I think Shaun's up to something. I don't know what's going on.
And I woke up about 5 o'clock that morning. I went, I know why he's pushing. It makes perfect sense. He went up to Flint. He probably asked my parents' permission. Like, everything started clicking in my head. So I called a friend that Friday afternoon and said, okay, this is, I think, what's going to end up happening. Tell me if I'm reading too much into this. And she tried to convince me I was reading too much into it.
So we go to French Laundry. We sit down and, I'm explaining to her the different things. And I told her that I was, my boss had explained some stuff to me about getting married and whatnot.
So we dressed up and we went up to French Laundry and we're waiting in line, and he starts being typical Shaun of, it's been about 2 years since we were here for our reconnection date, and we sat right there at the table. Wouldn't it be cool if we sat at that same table again? And we just kind of joking back and forth about it. I
started explaining to her like the history of a wedding ring and everything like that and what it means, and I put it out on the table.
We were sitting there and we were having dinner, and he slides something across the table, and I said, what's this? He goes, well, I have a confession to tell you. On Thursday, while I was up in Flint, I went and bought the engagement ring, and he started telling me all the traditions of the engagement ring and why it goes on the finger it goes on, and I said, okay, that's all great, but are you going to put the ring on me? And he's like, well, aren't you going to look at it first? I said, yeah, when you put it on my finger.
She goes, okay. Like, just looking at me like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, she's like, you going to put it on my finger? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess, if you want me to.
And so it was very Shaunish of him. He didn't get down on one knee. It was, wasn't that it drew a lot of attraction to us, which is exactly what I was hoping it wouldn't be, just because I'm not that kind of a person where I open up everything to everybody. So it was kind of nice, just, us. And there was a couple people that were pointing and going, oh, did they just get engaged? And, a couple people kind of clapped for us. But other than that, it was just us that knew about it. So it was nice.
We were just sitting there enjoying a cocktail, and good thing we were. She told me, she's like, if I didn't have this half a glass of wine in me already, she's like, I'd be crying. I'm so happy. I was like, well, good. We don't need your makeup running or anything like that. So
we left the restaurant and we walked back to the car, and I said, well, I guess I need to call my parents and tell them. And he goes, well, why don't you just take a picture of it and text it? So I did, and I posted it to Facebook.
My mother knew about the ring. My dad didn't know what I was going to do. I hadn't told Danielle's parents because I knew that they wouldn't be able to keep it from her. They would be, trying to say, well, what are you and Shaun doing this weekend? I mean, just really trying to give it away, because I already did a pretty good job of that.
We ended up going to the tattoo shop that's down the street, and He had to make an appointment anyway, so we just went there, and so his tattoo artist was the first one to see the ring on me. All of a sudden, I was getting text messages from everybody because everybody found out about it. You know, my phone died, I think, almost all the way home because everybody was texting me and saying congratulations, and I think I had 35 likes by midnight, and it was nice to see that everybody was happy for us. We talked about getting married, so it wasn't a huge surprise for a lot of people, but they were glad that it was just finally happening, I think.
So Danielle, I love you. I don't know what I'd do without you. I can't imagine, I can't remember what it was like before we were together. I try to think about it, and it doesn't process in my head. You know, I can hardly wait to spend the rest of my life with you. You are my best friend, and I love you, plain and simple.
Shaun, you know I love you. You understand me better than anybody else ever has, ever will. You read my face like a book. You know exactly when something's wrong. You know when to back off, for the most part. We get in each other's throats every now and then, but what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I think that we're going to have a wonderful future together. I can't wait to start it.